Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The New Left. Sorry, we are a little late. There were a couple of things that came up, but as you all may know or may not know, my name is Andrew, at Radical Pragmat 1 on Twitter, and my co-host today is Logan. Logan, if you want to just quickly introduce yourself.
Hello, Logan Grendel here. I've been on a couple times and happy to be co-hosting with Andrew today.
Yes, awesome. So what we'll do is we have a lot that we're going to be discussing today. And so if everyone just wants to quickly introduce themselves, give their Twitter handle, and then we'll be right on with the topics. So starting with David, and we'll work our way right and downward.
I'm David Sandbeck, at David Sandbeck on Twitter. Easy to find.
All right. And then Ike?
Ike D's. I'm the real Ike D's on Twitter. Just a working class big mouth.
Awesome. You're in the right place. All right.
A great username, by the
way. So we'll go to we'll go to Savage Joy, and then we'll work our way to the right, and then we'll end with Soul on the bottom.
So I'm at Savage Joy Marie 1 on Twitter, and then you can also find me on my show on YouTube at Savage Joy Marie Man.
I'm Z, and my handle's at Zabralin W, and it'll be under CoinTailDs, or CoinTailDs. So, yeah.
Awesome. I believe Comrade K is heating something up right now, right? Pizza or something. So we'll come back to Comrade K, and then Soul, if you want to introduce yourself, are you able to?
Hi, everyone. I'm Soul. You can find me at Pole of Justice Pod on Twitter. That's Politics of Justice Podcast on Twitter, where hopefully we'll talk about similar stuff to here, how to emerge from empire and duopoly, using our solidarity.
Absolutely. Cool. So we've got a few different topics today. One topic that we're going to keep vague, because if some of you were watching the previous show, there was something that happened, right? So we're going to talk about some type of conflict that's going on between someone named Julie and Saya. More to that in a second. And then we're going to talk about the Iron Dome bill and AOC, how she became kind of the center of attention on this bill. And I'm actually looking forward to talking about this, because I think, speaking of Logan, it sounds like that some of us might have some different takes on this, which I'm actually looking forward to, because I feel like sometimes we can be all a little bit either echo chamberly, or we kind of just, any different disagreements we have, we just kind of move forward and go. So it'll be nice to kind of have a, healthy discussion on this, because I think there are many different ways that we can look at this in good faith. Not in how CNN, Fox kind of shout at each other, but in actual intellectual discourse. So then we have that, and then we're going to finish off, or Logan's going to primarily lead us on the infrastructure bills with Biden and such. So
and such.
There's a lot of such, a lot of such on that. Yeah. So, on that note, let's take it away. So, I'm going to, as a lot of you maybe know, Yahoo did a little bit of news investigation, which props to Yahoo. I really didn't think they were much of anything. But this was pretty respectable for them to do. Yahoo News investigations, based on conversations with more than 30, we'll call them former U.S. diplomats, 8 of whom described details of SIA, proposals to abduct this person named Julie. And it reveals for the first time one of the most contentious debates of the Trump presidency and exposes new details about the U.S. government's war on this source. We'll call it Wikipedia, but it's not really Wikipedia, okay? It's something that goes a little bit more in depth than Wikipedia on specific instances, all right? So hopefully
if
y'all...
it's not working correctly, then, there you go.
Yeah. So hopefully y'all are with me now. We're trying to, stay on, because, First Amendment is really, really important. And without it,
The irony
we have to kind of
being
talk
suppressed.
So bear with us, everyone. All right. So to give some background, this person named Julie has been in trouble for a while, right? And part of it was creating this source, this Wikipedia source that really showed a lot of bad things that a certain country was doing to other countries, right, on video. And so this has made some people angry. And so in 2010, Sweden issued an arrest warrant over sexual misconduct of Julie. And this Julie was put on bail where they were seeking refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where they were granted asylum, right? So this is where they all are now. Now, it just so happens that Pompeo, who is head of the Freedom Government, right?
Loving these euphemisms.
Yeah. Got pretty angry at Julie, and in late 2017, there was a debate over taking away Julie, or even worse, taking away their life, because Julie happened to discover some kind of invasive tools that CIA was using against people. And so this really pissed off a lot of people who are part of the Freedom Government. And so it's come out that Yahoo came out with reports that they wanted to kidnap Julie from the Ecuadorian embassy. And part of it is believed that it was Pompeo kind of leading this. They had sketches of how they were going to do it. But I think what became really fascinating and interesting was that here they are on British soil, right? They're trying to kidnap Julie. Britain's like, you're not going to do this on our soil, bro. Like, what are you doing? And Russia also was kind of like, well, let's take Julie and bring Julie over to us. So here you have all these different organizations kind of standing out there and watching. And so it turns out that eventually they couldn't figure out a way to legally do this. And so it never came to fruition. But this is sort of all of the uncovering of just like what they were trying to do to Julie, because Julie took a stand against certain people, right? And so I don't know. I've said my piece. I've done my best to kind of make this as clear as possible without saying names. Who else would like to kind of add to this or talk about any other context within non-First Amendment means?
So I'd just go on and say that this is, of course, an attack on journalism, and it's frightening. But this isn't a partisan matter. This is something where we had Hillary Clinton openly asking, why can't we just drone this guy? And so this is a journalist doing journalism and not editorializing everything like the corporate media does. He does the real thing. He lets you make up your mind. He puts it out there on his repository of information, and they want to shut that repository down. They want to shut up debate, and they want to intimidate journalists, and that's exactly what they're doing. And we've had American journalists go out there and have their laptops confiscated by the CIA, and they kept quiet. and at least Julian's not keeping quiet. And of course, that's why the CIA's. That's why there's government planning to kill a journalist.
Absolutely, yeah. Anyone else have any other reactions or things they would like to add?
Let me just say that the fact that we.
Oh, sorry.
Let me just say the fact that we even have to encrypt our conversation about this really does not speak very well for this whole thing, right? Like the fact that, it's Mercury retrograde, so maybe it was just an innocent mistake, but I just really don't. I mean, this is an organization and in a country that is well known for its imperialist tendencies and for essentially whenever the wrong information gets said, they shut it down. Right. To me, this is no surprise. And the fact that we even have to, discuss this as like something that's like, oh, this came out. It's like, of course it did. Of course it did. And well, let me not get ahead of ourselves. Anyone else want to hop in?
Yeah. I'm not surprised by this because remember when Jamal Khashoggi was butchered in that embassy, and because the United States was balls deep in Saudi arms deals, they decided, yeah, we're not going to do anything about it. Trump literally got on TV and said, we would investigate, but there's too much money. That wasn't a conspiracy theory. He said to the whole world, listen, I'd love to investigate the guys who chopped up Jamal Khashoggi, but I got to get that bread, that I'm going to add to my pile of bread. And essentially, everyone was so horrified by it. They had undeniable proof that the crown prince was, directly responsible for ordering his assassination and butcher and disposal of the body, which, holy shit, that is horrible what happened. But if the United States was willing to allow an American journalist, by the way, to be brutally executed like that, for the sake of protecting corporate interests, why is anyone surprised that they would go out of their way to try to kill Julian Assange? I am not surprised at all. And this is going to keep happening. So as long as it keeps happening, we have to keep fucking making a fuss about it.
Yeah. So I think, it's sometimes in order to strengthen our arguments, it helps to know kind of what the opposing arguments are. So I don't know. Let's just think about this. Is there any way to potentially play devil's advocate for this, right? So if you're talking to someone who is part of that organization, right? Like, what legal precedent do they have on this? Is there any?
Absolutely. Okay.
Well-
Well, let me put on my my hat here. There are certain pieces of information that are vital to the security of America. And if any of those pieces of information, no matter how they're gotten, get out, we have to find ways to adjust what we consider to be legal, because what is most important is the preservation of America. And if we can't do that, then we have nothing. And if we have to change things a little bit, we don't care about one particular reporter or another, right? Essentially, we can do what we please in our own interests.
And another argument would be the information was obtained illegally. Somebody criminally stole information, and that's why it shouldn't be disseminated, as the information was obtained illegally, regardless of its quality or merit.
It's very similar to the Patriot Act, if you think about it, or what Edward Snowden revealed about how all of us are being listened to, or even what's happened after January 6th. We're kind of getting like a new Patriot Act and they're cracking down in a new way on everybody. It just gives them a reason to start cracking down on everybody and everybody's privacy. Anyone who could potentially expose the flaws, of the state.
Which I found ironic, because reading the Yahoo report, Snowden, obviously the revelation was how heavy the government surveils us, right? And before Snowden, I remember it was saying the Obama administration was saying, let's leave WikiLeaks alone, right? We can't really, there's nothing we can really do much. But once the Snowden revelation came out, about heavy surveillance, they started surveilling WikiLeaks harder, right?
Mhm.
And so that is, I think, the whole interest, irony of it is they're like, okay, we're gonna in some ways scale back our surveillance, but we're gonna surveil you harder because F you, right? And so that I find fascinating. Hey CJ, how are you?
Well, if you remember
Hey,
Reality Winner a couple years ago, when she sent that information to that she found out to The Intercept, and then they turned it into the government, and they went after her, and and then we found out The Intercept was sketch as hell.
Yep.
Yeah, they're past their peak, but
Mhm.
yeah. But Z, I really liked your question that you put in the chat. The first one. Do you know the first one? Let's talk about that question.
Oh, what
Let
it
me
being?
look. Let me
Okay.
let me go back to the chat so that we have the specific one. Give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry to catch you off guard. I really like the questions. So, okay, you where you said, is it really out of character to carry out extra legal missions like this, right?
Yeah, Is it? I mean, yeah. Is it really out of character for SIA? We know that organization to be carrying out extra legal missions like this. I mean, we've seen it over the years. I mean, even
That's its number one function.
Yeah, that's one of its number. It was
Yes.
created for. We've seen it in neighborhoods where they put back drugs that they've confiscated. We've seen it with trying to assassinate Castro. We've seen his exploding cigar, his swimsuit lined with poison, the breakdown of the destabilization of governments in Central America. Just
Yeah, it's a rogue agency, right? It's not constitutional. There is nothing about it which makes any legal sense. There's no, essentially it is completely outside of our control. And that by itself makes it extremely, extremely dangerous. And they don't work for us. We have no access to them.
They're not voted in.
They're not voted in. I mean, it's when we talk about things like a deep state and like a permanent state, and people make up these sort of shadowy cabals. It's like, you don't need shadowy cabals. You know what I mean? We know it's right there in front of you. And the fact that we don't talk about it more openly is what leads to the more conspiratorial, people making things up, because it's like your brain gets broken. You get gaslit so often that you just start making shit up.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, well, first of all, I'll say, how people call Jeremy Corbyn Jezza? Well, I've been calling this Julie person Jessa, because it's kind of like a combination of both. And that way he sounds like he's in Wu-Tang Clan or something awesome. But anyway, so I usually break down, it's amazing how little people know about this person. First of all, he is not a hacker. That is not what he is. People so often think he is a hacker. That's not it. Also, as a journalist, 100% record since 2010. That is insane. No other publication, news source, whatever, could even come close to that. Also, something I rarely hear people talk about is the fact that, yes, there is connections to the CIA and such. However, what about the countless people who think that he is in prison because of Queen HRC?
Mm-hmm.
There is something with that.
Yes.
He destroyed the 2016 election, and he's the reason she lost, and all of this stuff. And to many people, that's why he's in prison, because they're so uneducated. So, the whole, can we just drone this guy and shit? That's legit. That was in WikiLeaks. That was her words. And when she was asked about it, she said, I don't remember saying that, but if I did, it was a joke. So
she likes to joke about killing people, or
she
people
turned
who
into
dead.
Donald Trump.
There's a
Now,
lot linking to them as
imagine
well.
anybody else. Imagine anybody else in their place of work making that a joke. Why don't we just drone Dave one day? You know, he's not cooperating. Why don't we, I mean, you would be fired in a second, but you know, you're
I'd
Hillary
actually
Clinton,
take
so
that.
you
I'd
get to do
actually
whatever
take
you
that
want.
less of a threat because they don't have power.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because Democrats play this very key role in solidifying empire, if you think about it, right? Because it's the party that kind of has this reverence towards authority, whether it's the police state, whatever you want to call it, right? And we're increasingly seeing on the right, actually, that more people are questioning these organizations and authority and are becoming skeptical of what's going on. Whereas liberalism has been like kind of staunchly defending these institutions. And I've started to think that the role of the Democratic Party is really to protect the Republican Party. Because if we only had a right-wing party in this country, there would be this staunch opposition to it. There would be some kind of rebellion against it.
Mm-hmm.
But that energy is now channeled into the Democratic Party, where you're supposed to feel like everything's fine and they're at least on your side, even if they're not helping you, even if they're not working for the actual things you need. And in that way, they kind of serve to solidify empire in the way
It's
we're
like
talking about today.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's like a good cop, bad cop, and I think Chris Hedges puts it really well when he talks about the corporate coup d'état, where you have it's just corporate fascism the whole way. So both parties are bought out because the corporations it's the corporations the whole time, just in the elites, just controlling everything. Where they've already took it over through their own coup, and so either way, you're just voting for the fascists on the right or the fascists on the left. Which is not even the left anyway, it's just the center, because just like you look at it, they're just false left.
It's not really the center.
I wanted to kind of circle back a little bit to Z's question on whether or not that's normal, right? Kind of what was happening. And I think one thing that's interesting is, yes, it's normal, but what I think was a little interesting about it was that this was a white country, like a white dominated country, a European country that was an ally to the United States, that they were planning to do this, which is unusual in that sense, right? Like, and so I'm thinking one of the reasons why it was not carried out was because they were like, okay, well, these people are our allies, and we, even though we're like really powerful, we kind of need them on our side, right? Like, you know, imperialism, solidarity, right? All that. So I think it wasn't necessarily that it was not, you couldn't validate that it was legal. Sure, they've done things that are just as illegal as that, and they've been able to validate it because, you know, we're America and we do what we want. And, you know, the UN is just a thing on paper that doesn't really keep us in check, right? So that is, I think, really kind of, I think, what is behind some of that too. You know, Britain is an ally. They're not a black or brown country, and so some of that I think played a role in
right. And they can't drop bombs on hospitals there. You know, they can't just kill all kinds of innocent civilians without it being picked up by the news. And I think a lot of this goes back to it's just not common knowledge about our intelligence agencies. Look at what we're doing here. We're censoring ourselves so the stream doesn't get shut down. And we can't even explain to people. It's like we're going through hoops to try to explain to people just how devious these intelligence agencies are from the jump. Like, especially CIA. I mean, their whole inception is to overthrow governments and fuel government power and fuel military power. It's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like we're up against a wall here.
They're also the primary hammer against global movements that are powered by people. I mean, that was basically like their first huge move was, in 1953 with Mossadegh. You know, I call it the OG Handmaid's Tale. You know, it's like everything we're afraid about here, like, was experienced by Iranian women in the early 50s. You know, the early 50s through the 60s. It was like, you know, we took this country that was rapidly giving more power and money to its people, and we couldn't have that, right? So smashed it and then turned it into what it is today, which is basically, just like another religious fascism, and that is one of their main jobs globally, is to make sure that anything that is powered by the people, we're going to shut it off, and no one is held accountable ever.
Well, even domestically, right? Fred Hampton, all of our revolutionaries were either assassinated or put in jail.
Absolutely.
Which is why probably the left is flailing right now.
Free Assange now, or excuse me,
Julie.
Assange now. Sorry.
Assange.
Oh, we're dead. It's over.
But also,
Screen just went fuzzy.
I'm terrified if he gets out. Like, honestly, I'm fucking terrified.
Yeah.
So, yes, get them out today, but also what, and I know this is like a really like broad question and it kind of opens up another topic, but what the hell can we do to keep them safe if they do get out? That's my concern.
Yeah.
Go to Cuba?
I was gonna say, like, Edward Snowden feared the exact same thing. It's why he went all the way to Russia, right? Pick which U.S. enemy you're
he was forced there, but yeah,
and just
Any
move
of the state.
whether it be, I wouldn't say Cuba because, Fidel Castro survived all those assassination attempts on pure fucking luck and awesomeness. But fucking, I can't say the same about everywhere else. Maybe China, maybe Russia, maybe not Iran.
Asada Shakur's there, and she's been doing fine.
Yeah, I'm actually reading that right now.
Yeah, like he got to move. Like when Julian becomes free, that boy got to move. He got to fucking hop on the first plane to fuck that Ville and just get the hell out. And he has
keep
to
moving.
And whatever he does when he gets on that plane, don't order any drinks. Don't. Not a single one. For God's sakes, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Do not get on a private jet.
Yeah. I wanted to quickly address
a possibility.
Oh, sorry. Go for it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's a possibility there's a possibility he may be extradited here and not be able to leave.
Yeah.
That's my fear. Yeah, go somewhere else. Hell yeah. What you're saying, absolutely. What if he can't?
Well,
I mean, this is why they say that
Mexico or somewhere else. If you're in a situation like Julie, you have to fucking run. You have to run. It doesn't matter where you end up. He extradited to the United States. You got to go to Mexico somehow. You're in your home country.
On him. Like, it's not going to be that simple. Like, it's not. I think I never said it.
I never said it was, but you got to try anyway. Like I said, Snowden had the whole U.S. intelligence agency on his ass every second.
Snowy.
It's snowy. Sorry, snowy. But he managed to get out. He managed. Now, he could have just as easily not have. But, Julie's safety is out of our hands because there's nothing we can do except raise awareness about him. The only person who could protect Julie at this point is Julie and whichever country he touches down in if he does manage to escape.
Well,
it's important that we acknowledge that is part of a First Amendment grievance as well, not just being, held captive and tortured, but also the ramifications for when they get out. That's all, it's all relative.
Yeah, I agree.
That article is huge. The Yahoo article is huge because it's going to lead to a lot of people talking about Sia.
Yeah. I mean,
most people just don't know about it.
I think one or two things could happen. Yes, more people could be talking about Sia, or it could be a similar situation like with what happened to Snowy, where people were talking about it for a little bit, but then distractions came and people forgot about it, right? I think the thing that people often underestimate is people have short attention spans because it's always like going to the next thing, so that if it's not continuously harped on, people forget and move on with other distractions. So I think it's just a matter of continuously bringing it up, continuously bringing examples for that.
This is just something that underlines the fact that, I forget who said it, but our fight here is the most important fight because we have there it is. Everything, we can touch everything. We have fingers everywhere. And that's why it is so vital that we here do everything we can. And why, I'll talk about this later, but like the idea of leaving this country to me is unpalatable because we're nearer to the steering wheel where somebody is driving over people and just running them down left, right, and central. If you are near that steering wheel, you got to stay close to it and try and grab it however you can. You may not be successful, but you don't fight because you're going to win. You fight because it's the right thing to do.
We're in the Imperial Core, right?
Exactly.
It's on us.
I like to throw that rhetoric back at the right wingers. Oh, you like the police? You like the police state? Go move to one. Go move to North Korea where they have an officer or a soldier on every corner and see how you like it there. I tell them that I throw the rhetoric right back at them.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know what's related to this is how the idea of the dumb left that's being fueled. So now you're seeing, well, you've been seeing it for a while, all these ratios on all these popular politicians, these political people. You're seeing all these huge ratios, and it's kind of almost creating this atmosphere where people are just blowing that off as not real opposition. And then we get kind of swept up in this apathy towards censorship on social media. So it's like, it's just all connected. And I feel like Trump derangement syndrome really had a serious impact on that by the way we elevated all of these CIA people, all these government spooks.
Do you guys remember the time that... Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say...
I was going to just say... Oh, sure.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Trump derangement syndrome comes in many forms. I just have to say this, that the most deranged form is it lowered the bar to the point that Biden was acceptable and looks good. His magic sauce is low expectations. That's another manifestation of Trump derangement syndrome.
Yes.
It's still there.
Yeah. So speaking of politicians, and I don't know, CJ, since, I want to be cognizant of some of the limitations, do you think it's an idea to show that video since it's kind of all spelled out, or should we skip it and kind of go off? I can't hear you.
Sorry, I forgot. I got two buttons that controls my mic. So let's skip that. Yeah, let's skip it. For that meeting I just got out of. Yeah, let's not do that.
Okay, cool.
Oh, can I just say something else really quick that I just thought of?
Sure.
I seem to remember in 2017 when there were some hidden phone calls and stuff that were coming about Trump, and everyone was like, yes, oh my God, leak them. And it was like trending, like leak the tapes. But when this Wikipedia came out, it was like people like Donna Rochelle were like, oh, guess what? You're literally not allowed to read it. It's against the law. Mm-hmm. You can't. I know it's there. You cannot read it. But then everyone's like, yes, Queen. Oh my God, this is amazing. Release everything you have on Trump. So it really is contingent on the person and the party. We've seen this forever, and it's not going to change.
Absolutely. The parties warp our brains more than a lot of other things. Like people just it's a team, right? So if you're someone on your team lies, you go, no, they didn't lie. They're telling the complete truth.
The best team ever.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's gangs, Doesn't matter if your boy shot this other person. Like you're gonna defend them, you're gonna ride for them no matter what. And it is just, it's all theater because it is all the same team. What is the saying? America's a one-party state, but in typical American extravagance, they have two of them.
There's a Facebook group called Anything is Possible When You Lie, and it's just hilarious because it's just like how we just if you say things enough, then like people believe it and don't question it critically. All right, cool. We'll go with Comrade K, and then we can maybe go on to the whole Iron Dome bill thing. Does that sound good? All right,
great
awesome.
Idea.
Sure.
Well, first, before I start, I want to really quickly address that we are in Orwell 1984. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. No society without completely destroying this goddamn planet and wiping most humans off the face of the earth could ever reach that level of absurd totalitarian surveillance. But the danger in 1984 is that I don't know why it serves as an inspiration for states all over the world to try to hit that level. And in attempting to hit that level, they speed up their own demise because a surveillance state like that could never be as sophisticated as 1984. You'll never get to that point. It's kind of like the surveillance equivalent of you will never be a billionaire. You could work your whole life, but you'll die before you get there. But as I was going to say, trigger warning for anybody who knows any of these people and hate them with all their passion. Alex Jones, Stephen Crowder, Ben Shapiro, Paul Joseph Watson, Candace Owens. Who else? Any other YouTube commentator who uses a avatar that they drew themselves with the same 4 emotions. This is a trend we've been seeing for a while. The left is personified in the eyes of the public by its opponents. If any of you remember, I remember this like it was yesterday because it was so prevalent in my high school. If we remember the anti-SJW craze of the 2014, 15, 16, all the way to like 17, I think it was, that was when at its peak. Liberalism and white liberals, basically, because capitalism, the mainstream capitalist society, has done such a good job at defanging and de-radicalizing social movements revolving around Black activism and feminism and LGBT rights and stuff like that, and have fully defanged and liberalized them. White liberals, or what the right would call SJWs, social justice warriors, which is an overreach, to be honest, would make some bad takes here and there because at the end of the day, they're just liberals, right? And they would be absolutely destroyed by their opponents. And the right would take advantage of that and try to paint these people as representatives of the left. All they do is wear pussy hats and they wear sweaters that are too long for their arms. And, they all have weird colorful glasses and they shave half their heads and dye the other half. And, they're all pussies and they need safe spaces and they're coming for your kids and they want to, do all these things that aren't left at all. Like, if you actually study leftist history and leftist politics and revolutionary dogma and doctrine and shit, if you actually look at what the left is, the real left is a far more formidable opponent to the right, but the real left is depowered because we are not represented by revolutionaries. We are represented by idiots. We're represented by people like Nancy Pelosi, by people like AOC, by people like liberal activists that like to encourage positive discourse by respectfully disagreeing with bigots and people who want to hurt us, rather than allowing revolutionaries to take the forefront of the movement. It's kind of like, it's just...
It's intentional, though.
Yeah, it's careerists.
Yeah,
they're not idiots. They're careerists.
Yeah, exactly. They're careerists. Well, you could argue that they're also idiots because I watched Nancy Pelosi stare into a camera and say "Good morning" Sunday morning when she was asked a completely different question. I don't know how the fuck
I love that meme.
the weather, but whatever. But
I beg to differ, though. Nancy Pelosi is not an idiot. She's a very, very bad person.
She's scary. Yeah, I know. But that's where this came from. Alex Jones, Stephen Crowder, Ben Shapiro, these people have no idea what the left really is, and they're willfully ignorant or they just don't care.
I think they're willfully ignorant.
They intend to keep pushing that image of us onto everyone else. So when people say there was a left for a local union and stuff like that, they'll think, those they have their hair dyed and fucking SJWs.
So what you're saying is that
we keep being associated with. Yeah, we keep being associated with. I hate saying the word. We keep being associated with radical liberals. I hate putting those two words together, but you know.
And a lot of us got caught up combating and arguing with those people for years. I remember being just all up Obama's ass like 2 years into his presidency. And I remember any kind of like negative opinions that anybody had about him, I would sit here and think, why? What? They must be racist. They have to be a racist. I was such a shitlib. Like I could not think of why these people. It's because I was the kind of person every single day I watched Rachel Maddow. I watched Keith Olbermann. If I missed it, I went to the website and downloaded the video of it like every single day. And that shit was pure indoctrination. Somebody just said that in the chat earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conservatives did the best job for running cover for the oligarchs when it came to distracting from Obama's actual flaws by focusing it on such trivial BS, right? I remember Sean Hannity did a clip on him being mad at Obama having Dijon mustard. We had the tan suit, right? Meanwhile, he's like adding all these different wars, all these different civilian casualties, the housing bubble. He allowed all these banks to take these houses that foreclosed, right? Instead of, and so, yeah, it really distracted from the fact that and like he said in the 80s, that he would be considered a moderate Republican in the 80s, right?
Self-admitted.
He wasn't lying, and he was telling the truth there, and it somehow went over everyone's heads.
This ties in
the way
really
he
well
brushed
to
his shoulders off. Oh man, that shit was dope.
Oh yeah.
And this ties in really well to my counterpoint for the next part. So
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so let's get on to talking about the Iron Dome bill and AOC. Wanted to first just briefly answer a chat that was posted a while ago that I didn't want to put on because it had the person's name about whether average Americans know about Julie. I think short answer to that is no. Or very little, right? And I remember learning about Tiananmen Square in China and them saying, oh, we have free press. They didn't know anything about this, right? And I can think of countless examples that the United States does to us, whether it's the Dakota pipeline that was happening that never got any press coverage, right? They do this all the time. And so, yeah, but let's get on to the Iron Dome bill. Which I'm excited about because it looks like we may be having some nuanced conversation and debates, which is always a good thing to have. So let's just talk real quick about the Iron Dome bill, right? And so this actually, initially they were going to, from my understanding, they were going to include the Iron Dome bill into a larger defense spending package, right? And it was because of the progressive House Democrats that they removed that funding for the Israel Iron Dome from that defense system package, forcing everybody to vote solely on the Iron Dome funding, right? That's essentially what you all found as well, right?
Yep.
We've got that. And so the vote was whether or not they were going to bring $1 billion to fund this Iron Dome, which is essentially designed to intercept rocket launchers that are coming from the occupied territories in Gaza and the West Bank and such, right? And so it was voted on separately. It was 420 people voted to fund the Iron Dome of $1 billion. And 9 people voted against it. And then we had one person. I think it was just one person that did present on it, right? I think it's important just to kind of do a quick analysis of this. Is that it's really hard to show. Oh, what's up, Chad? Green. It's really hard.
Right, Chad.
Yeah, it's really hard to actually look for information and find that previously they had already agreed to fund $1.7 billion to it, like 5 or 6 years earlier, that was still going into the funding, right? So I think it's always important to look at the Overton window where it's like, they're trying to say that the fringe thing is to not fund the 1 billion Iron Dome, when really it's really just the middle ground, because it's like they already have $1.7 billion previously. We just don't want 1 billion added to that, right? So I think that's just extra context that's important to mention, because so many of these news outlets, I said, just frame it as they didn't want to fund Israel's Iron Dome at all. So, but we happen to have a certain politician that a lot of people have been talking about, and so Logan, take it away with talking about that piece.
So AOC has become the center of this discussion. And I mean, it's largely because she is who she is, right? She is popular. She's young. Her victory in New York was against, one of the more powerful Democrats. She basically went up against the machine and won. So she is for both the left and the right, right? She's she's a lightning rod of a figure, right? And so she has become at the center of this because she voted no, and then she voted present, and then, had a very public, moment of tears on the House floor. About which, lots of people have many feelings. And look, by and large, I agree that, I don't, it's unfortunate, right, that she felt this way about it, but really her actions would have been the more important thing. And I want to just throw out there that I don't disagree with the criticisms of AOC. I disagree with her being the focal point. I think that if there's two ways we can look at AOC, right? Either she is and she definitely is a young Latina from New York, right? And we can either view her as someone who went in and got quickly corrupted, or we can view her as someone who is, cynical and does it all on purpose, right? But in either case, she's not where all this is coming from, right? And her one present vote has been the discussion rather than free Palestine all day, every day. Why? Why on earth is this even being discussed by our government, right? Why are we allowing her to be a lightning rod for this discussion and thereby do the same thing we've been talking about earlier, right? Where it's like, you've got your right wing, you've got your, your right wing party and your left wing party, both of which are actually right wing parties, right? It's, again, I've said this before, but it's like the Pepsi Coke war, and you don't talk about the fact that what you need is water. So whether or not we like her or don't, right, allowing her to dominate the discussion, they win. They win every time. Right. And I'm not even talking about basically putting the focus more on people who are directly responsible, because that's like 400 people. Right. We know that our government is not for us. Do we actually know that? Do we actually believe that? If we do, then every time they put up someone like AOC in front of us, I think what we should do is say, OK, cool. Free Palestine. Right. Why does Fraud Squad trend more than Free Palestine? That is why we fail. We fail because we don't keep our wits about us and realize when we are being played, no one is immune to propaganda, and we are being propagandized. And she, whether it is because she is too naive or because she is cynical, helps that process very, very well.
Falling into the sensationalism.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. It's like the progressive electeds we now can see basically serve to channel the energy of the left into a party where our agenda is dead, essentially.
Absolutely.
It's, to move our focus to that. I will say, though, I mean, you're right. We can't only focus on what the squad is doing, but I also think that there was an opportunity there with the squad where they've obviously let us down. A lot of people say, oh, the left isn't organized enough, right? Once we're more organized, then they'll actually fight for us because there's somebody there to back them. But I don't know. I mean, Bernie Sanders had, 1 million volunteers plus nationwide.
Yeah.
All of these squad members have national backing and support and organization that they could call on. That's how they won their campaigns. That's how they got into office. And as soon as they get into office, they kind of just throw all that away. They could call on us like they did somewhat when they were protesting for the eviction moratorium to be extended, right? They could be using that same tool every single day and refuse to. So if we kind of take a step back from this Iron Dome bill, which is like the newest thing that's happened, and kind of look at what's happened over the past year. I mean, even if wasn't the dress like last week, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
2 weeks ago, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, what I was thinking about that day was, you know how the next day we saw all the videos of the BLM protests that were happening outside the gala?
Mm-hmm.
And so it really made me think, like, why weren't you there? Shouldn't you have been at the protest instead of inside the gala? Wouldn't have that brought a lot more media attention to the protest that almost nobody heard about because everybody was focused on her dress and on the gala? Or you could have used that moment to protest for rent cancellation, for example, because the eviction moratorium extension was ending too, or it had just ended, and they were silent about that.
The power move would have been to walk out of the gala in the dress to the protest. That would have been the thing to do. She actually,
to be honest, I actually want to see that.
Exactly.
Or just walk out and just like go stand with them in the dress. It's like, oh yeah.
That right.
That
would have been a thing.
That would have, yeah.
You know, I just one last thought I had on this was, I was just saying that, you know, one last thought I had here was, right now the Democrats have the slimmest House majority that they've had in a century, I believe, is the statistic I read. So the squad and progressive electeds in general actually do have a remarkable amount of leverage right now. Like, as we're seeing with the infrastructure bill, they could hold up any bill that they wanted to.
Yeah.
And that's like once in an era kind of leverage that the left was not expecting to get, right? That could have been used. And, you know, we're going to lose that slim majority, obviously, by next year. So to me, it seems like now there are a lot of people opening up their eyes after this Iron Dome vote. And you guys have probably seen even people on Twitter who used to staunchly defend AOC have kind of started saying, gosh, you know, like, I can't even defend this. And what really bothered me about that is that, you know, those people didn't trust their own comrades for a whole year when people were calling this out since like last November. It's been like a year. And we lost half of that congressional term and all that leverage that actually existed in just convincing people that, hey, actually, we have a lot more leverage than we're using right now.
Yeah. Z, you want to go, and then
I just want to say two things. One thing is a fact about them seeming as though just like win the elections and then leave. It seems like ever since Obama won, that he developed a new type of, like, he changed the way elections were run by, like, just as far as the internet, combining the internet and just getting those giant fundraisers from grassroots, and then just acting progressive and just ditching the whole thing afterwards, since that whole change model had happened. And then the second thing I was going to say, there was a very revealing interview that AOC had. I think it was on CNN that came out a couple of days ago, and she was being asked about to explain the apartheid state in Palestine. And it seemed like she didn't know what was the situation really, how to explain what the militarization or the apartheid state was over there. So it was a little bit concerning to who were even into in those offices in the first place. So I would that's just all I would add to that.
Was that the interview where she kind of talked about the how and the why and she kind of went?
Yeah,
she
just like kind of skirted around, and it's like, man, you literally call, like, you call something if you're teetering like this, and you call something you can't teeter after you called something an apartheid state. That is hardcore. Like, you're gone there. You have to go. You're calling out empire. You're calling out imperialism. You're calling out South Africa. You're pretty much calling out you're calling out Palestine. In some people's views, you might be calling out parts of America. You're calling out parts of America. So you can't just be using terms like that, and then just someone questions you on it, and you're like,
That's what happens when you talk out of both sides of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She called Nancy Pelosi Mama
I wanted
Bear.
to talk about
exactly.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. I think my one thought I have on this is, you know, and think about this in terms of like fights that you have with someone who you have a relationship with, whether it's a partner, whether it's a family member, right? oftentimes if you're having a particular fight over a particular instance, it is a wider issue that kind of is manifesting itself into that fight, right? And so when I look at people focusing on AOC, right, and her present vote, yes, I think you can maybe say, let's focus on the big picture, but I think that fight really represents the part of the left that's saying, you know, look, electoral politics, putting it front and center doesn't work because this is what happens. Yeah. We need to start doing direct action, right? Versus the left, part of the leftists who are like, anybody who criticizes the squad are doing, you know, Trump's bidding or the Republicans' bidding, right? And so I think that is part of why I agree the conversation should be on Palestine. I think some of the positives I will say that have come out from this discussion is it does seem like there are more and more people on the left who are starting to be like, I see your point that maybe they're not doing everything they should be doing, right? Or they're not, right? So I kind of see it in a little different way in that way. But I
actually agree with you. Like, and I agree with you. And like, I love the metaphor that you used of, you know, of a relationship, right? And I think that's what I'm saying is that, you know, when you start having a fight about like who didn't unload the dishwasher, right? You're not talking about the dishwasher. And so I think it's better to zoom out, right? But I don't think we're saying different things. I just think that, you know, that allowing the focus just to be around, you know, the you know, she's crying and like basically everybody's just talking about her crying, being like, wah, and like we're trivializing the conversation, I think, in the way that we're discussing it. And I get it, because the thing that I will say about it, as like, you know, just to kind of tie it up, is that it's easy to be angry at people who you are close to, and they give you a more visceral response, right? And I just want us to be cautioned to be careful of going towards those responses, because those are the responses that are being drawn out of us by these figures, right? They are being used to manipulate us and to get us not to zoom out and be like, it's not about the dress and it's not about her crying on the house floor, which is like, I mean, it's nonsense, right? But like, you know, let's have the fight that we're actually having, I guess, is, you know, to keep on that metaphor. It's like, look, honey, we're not arguing about the dishwasher, okay? Like, we're arguing about the fact that, like, we need to break up with your ass, right? And that's how I feel about electoral politics and about the squad in general. And that's the conversation. We're like, instead of being like, AOC sucks, we should be like, this is what happens when you count on electoral politics. It is the death of anything we can do route this way. If you can get in, you can beat the fourth most powerful person, and
then you're voting for an iron dome.
Your dreams will die there.
Yeah, looks like Sia's not happy with Logan.
I think that's what's happening, though. I feel like the criticism against AOC from the left is working. I think it's having some effect. It's creating more leftists. Like,
then
me focusing on her dress, or me focusing on her theatrics, literally in front of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, it was so obvious. Me focusing on that, it didn't stop me from continuing my journey. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It just. But I was just saying, like, it's actually working. I really do feel like it's actually working, because we're talking about it, and like a few people here have mentioned they've actually seen people say like, oh damn, yeah, maybe I have been tripping, maybe I have been up her butt, you know, like.
Well, I'm curious, what do folks think? I don't know if anyone.
And then we'll go to you, and then Savage has been raising her hand a while, so cool.
Sure. And I was just gonna say, like, I mean, I haven't really studied many like socialist revolutions, but it seems to me like there were always some revolutionary leaders. I don't know if they were always elected people or not. And it seems like in our situation now we're having to completely change course, whereas the left was kind of built in the past few years, at least, on electoralism around Bernie Sanders. and the squad now having to completely move in a different direction and find new leaders, grassroots leaders, which I think we should do. But I'm just curious from anyone who knows the history, like, are we kind of going for something unprecedented here?
I think that we were kind of like tricked by Bernie Sanders in a kind of way to think that things would be a lot more easy, and that things didn't, that actual organic revolutions didn't happen from the bottom up, from like the general masses of people, opposed to it just coming down from from like an executive order from the top. Like, I think that it was more of an organic thing that starts in communities, from community leaders, opposed to thinking that figureheads that are just symbols are just going to do something for you, because once somebody gets in power, if someone gets a taste of power, they're just the same as anybody else, I think. Right. Without actually changing the system, I think putting too much hope into one person is just, instead of just everyone, it's everybody, not just one person. I think that's the issue. And I think he kind of misled everyone on what socialism kind of was. And now that's a whole nother talk. So
yeah. And I think, and real quick before we just go to Savage Joy, I think people sometimes argue too much about whether or not the squad are good intentions, whether they're grifters, whether they're that, right? And I think that going on with that is a little bit of a waste of an argument in many ways, because the issue is that they're not getting done what we expected them to do, what we voted them in to do, right? The end result is not happening, and that's where the conversation needs to go. Whether or not they're good intention, whether or not they're grifters, they're all different people. They probably have variations, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that is something, sometimes I feel like leftists try and outdo each other, where it's like, they're sociopaths and stuff. And it's like, okay.
Sometimes I feel like
I'm not inside their head. Like, I don't know.
Sometimes I feel like the camera, like it was just the squad was just a machination of the media. Like, it was just like this thing that when they were together, like they just lumped a bunch of people who were like kind of like a little bit to the left together, and they would just all take pictures together, and it's be blew up together. And then when they they don't, because a lot of them don't even have the same spectrum of like beliefs when you like go and look at their pages and stuff like that. But then like when they like are not in front of the camera, it's like they just don't really talk to each other like that. Like, they do, but not like that. I don't know.
Savage Joy, let's hear from you. I know you've been having a burning thing to say.
So, Logan, of course, I agree with you. I typically do. And something that, that you said really, like, nothing hit me to prove that point more than when I was on Force the Vote Town Hall, and I shared my story about going blind recently for the first time in front of 130,000 people. And the next day, Medicare for All was trending. And the day after that, it wasn't trending. Jimmy Dore was trending.
Yeah.
Those days. Not me, not Medicare for All, not Scott Denoyer, who shared his story too. No, not us. Not the issue.
Yeah.
No, the person. So yes, people do get distracted by that shiny object all the time. To counter that, though, I will say I've interviewed AOC. I've had her on my show. I've done events with her in New York where I spoke at, an event she spoke at. Like, I knew her before she became this pop star. She started with good intention.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
However, what happened was she let people turn her into a pop star. When you are on the cover of Vogue and Vanity Fair and you let them dress you up and put you on fashion magazines, you go on RuPaul's Drag Race as a celebrity judge, you go to the Met Gala, you do these things, you are then looked at as a pop star and you will not be taken seriously. So
100%.
a lot of that is on her. But also I'll say I'm glad that some people are waking up, because when I just traveled to New York last month and I was, doing, call to action for AOC with students Duran and stuff, and we're standing there and we're like, yo, you're not holding up what you said you were going to do and all this shit. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. The only
I'm sure it
we
wasn't.
got was these, Susan Sarandon and these, Antifa, and it was bad. And we were like, we are just trying to hold her accountable. That's it. So I totally see your point, but then, it's kind of like if you posted about more serious things, people would take you more seriously. When your posts are nothing but defending yourself from Republicans and then, like trying to clap back at them, and, you're not putting a lot of sense. I think a lot of people, are just disappointed she didn't take a stand. Both sides, and it's like, if you're not going to vote, then say no. Just say no. And no, it would not have made a difference as far as passing. But, she put out this tweet and she was like, the bill was so horrible and it had horrible language and it was, then vote no. Then vote no.
Yeah.
I think what annoyed me the most about that explanation is there was no explanation as to why she voted no. She said, I realize why you have some questions about it, and I understand. But it was like, at least say your side. Like, you didn't even say your side. You just it was just a few paragraphs even more of like, I don't even know what. So
it's like that vapidness of Obama without the speechwriter.
Exactly. Yes.
Totally. It's like all of this. I mean, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. I'm just, it just, my thing is just like, if it wasn't her, it'd be someone else. And if it wasn't, it's just an endless, it is the celebrityization, which I know is not a word, whatever. They have, like Joy said, Savage Joy said, made her into a celebrity, and that's what she is now. And so if we let them do to us what they do with the rest of the celebrities, which is distract us and divide us, right? Because like you said, when we attack her, then that gets the liberals who might even be even a little bit more like actual progressives, right? Like people who are progressives, but but they still believe in the system, right? Like AOC is like the forlorn hope of those who want change but still don't want to have the system change. And I totally understand the visceral feeling she gives you, but to me it's just like, it's like I don't think we disagree at all on what she represents and what she does and how she presents herself. But for me, I'm just like, we're past this. Like we got maybe 20 years before this planet is uninhabitable to us. Like I don't give a right shit about her dress.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's like as somebody who's ever, who grew to oppose like people like Hillary and Obama, and now the squad who keep moving to the left of these people. Yeah. And the idea of what's the difference between attack, that is such a loaded word. It's like, if we attack her, what about criticizing her? And it kind of, it's like, it should be acknowledged that a lot of us are dealing with, treating her like a celebrity and the repercussions of that. A lot of us, we should acknowledge that. I donated to her when she was live tweeting during her orientation. I was like, oh my goodness, this has never happened before. She's live tweeting how they're trying to basically buy this these squad members, these freshmen, and this is amazing. And you're invested in her, but it's also the focus ends up being on her because she's got so many people behind her and following her. And so if we attack Obama, all the people who could possibly become or if we attack Hillary, it's like, if we attack AOC, it's like, man, can we criticize this person, the most popular person who has commanded herself and calls herself like a socialist, and she's took that mantle a lot on herself. She's got a lot of responsibility. I feel like, I don't know.
Let's have Comrade K, and then I have a thing.
I have something to contribute in a moment.
Thanks. Well, a lot of you guys basically said what I was already thinking, but luckily I still have some stuff to contribute to this. But I think the main takeaway here is that there are people who are getting disillusioned by AOC, and it's only going to continue to trend upward. Like the United States is falling further and further and further into despotism. How she's going to be forced to make these horrible decisions because of her career over and over again, and people will see her for the fraud that she is, and more and more and more and more and more. The day that she voted for that Iron Dome, changed her vote from no to present and then cried. So many people saw through that, even her own supporters. That was so disgusting. And that's not the first time it happened, and it's not going to be the last time it happened, and it's going to keep happening more and more and more as she becomes more absorbed into the Democratic Party. But the number one thing we need to do as leftists is that when we see these people, right, when we see these supporters and they're bummed out and they're like, man, I supported you. Why the fuck are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this? Jump on that shit. And then immediately, instead of us trying to rub it in their faces and be like, I fucking told you so, even though, you know.
Yes. Right.
Yes. Tempting as it is, because they treated us like shit for so long, as tempting as it is, we can't do that. We have to tell them, listen, we're sorry that all of this energy that you put into this person feels like it was for nothing. But there are places where you could put that energy that where it will actually mean something. Building mutual aid networks, direct action, general strikes, work refusals, mass gun registry for marginalized groups of people, encouraging self-defense, like community growth from the ground fucking up, like it was supposed
like you teach it, baby.
Yeah, man. There are your fucking efforts will not be put to waste if you invest in the people themselves rather than career politicians, because as taboo as this may sound on the left, even those elected socialists in other nations like Venezuela and Bolivia, Evo Morales and Maduro and X, Y, and Z, I'm sorry, even though they are probably way more radical than the progressives in the United States, they're still only able to get so much done because they're elected, and the system that they were elected in opposes their socialist agenda. It's why they work so goddamn hard. But the only way they can only get so far. They can't just pass a law that gives the workers the means of production. They'll see so much fucking resistance to that in their own goddamn country, because they lack revolutionary fervor. That those South American nations is how far is a representative of how far you can take socialism in terms of electoralism versus, you know, revolutionary fervor. And if we just let people see that and we take advantage of that disillusionment in a positive way
with compassion,
bro, I was fucking defending Justin Trudeau and Barack Obama and all those liberals for so many years against right-wingers. And now when I think back on it, I'm like, why?
Oops.
All the wasted years, like I could have been spending on something different. So we need to make sure that we give those people a good fucking avenue.
Yeah,
I'd like to bring it back to the Iron Dome topic and AOC's tears and just why this moment, why focus on AOC in this vote? Because she is being hypocritical. She's come out and said you should never vote present. You know, Tulsi Gabbard, who was voting present for the Trump impeachment, and AOC, oh, you can never vote present. Well, here she is voting present on a standalone dome funding, and it's like you have to call it out to hold them accountable. And there's just a little thing I'd like to share with everyone. At our governor's inaugural ball back in 2018. Some activists and I bumped into Betty McCollum, and her words were, and the nurses went up to Betty McCollum, our congresswoman here in the 4th District. Isn't it wonderful AOC won and all of this progressive movement and women in Congress and wonderful. And Betty turns around and she says, yeah, but she has to decide if she's going to be a socialist or a Democrat. Well, now we have the answer, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you on that. It's for me, it's just two things. I mean, I'm repeating myself, but I think it's a question of scope, right? Of how much we do that, and like Comrade K says, right? Are we dunking? Are we going like, ha ha ha, she's crying? Or are we going like, this is really disillusioning, but like, there's a place for you. There's, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's not this, we're not saying different things really. You know what I mean? It's just, it's all there. And it's just a question of like, the trending topics. And that's basically where I'm coming from, is like, we just gotta, stay woke, as they say, to the fact that she is a lightning rod. She is a personality that is there for us to focus on. And you're completely completely about, heightening those contradictions between her words and her actions. But like, that's what they all do. They're all liars, they're all liars. They're all getting, and also, who knows what they're saying behind closed doors, and who cares? We don't have time for them. And that's kind of,
No,
say,
sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say something real quick. I think there's a lot of things that obviously we all agree that piss us off that what liberals do, right? And I think whenever we're calling out liberals, we got to make sure that we're not doing the same thing on our end in a different form, right? And I think one thing that liberals do all the time is they say, oh, well, if Cinema and Manchin were just not there, then the Democrats would be doing everything hunky-dory and great, right? And that pisses that pisses me off. That pisses, I think, a lot of leftists off, because it's like, okay, you do not have a fundamental understanding of the power structures and the corruption that is going on, right? And if it's not them, someone else will definitely take their place. The amount of people that voted against the $15 minimum wage when it came out just showed that, right? It's not just Cinema and Manchin, right? And so I really do appreciate kind of thinking of like, we need to make sure that when we are criticizing AOC and the squad, it is within a larger context, and it's not like these individuals suck, because that does take away from the bigger issue and stuff. So yeah, that was just what I was
you definitely got to ignore I think it's dynamic, and you see somebody just, to be fair, I did make a crocodile tear meme of AOC, a picture of her.
they're kind of funny
with a crocodile head. But I mean, there are, there's pointless critiques, and there's maybe, sexist critiques, but it's just like one of those things. She's just another person that I'm criticizing from an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist point of view, and she happens to be the most popular person. And I'm serious. It's the same stuff that I heard about why I shouldn't criticize Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Not to dismiss that argument as simply just that, but it's the same thing. It's just like there's no politician that we should be going out trying to make an argument about, hey, we shouldn't criticize this person, we shouldn't attack this person. Like,
totally.
I think
let
you
me be
can
clear,
look
I
here,
am not saying that. I'm definitely not saying that.
And I think you can look here just amongst the Fred Hampton leftists. Look at all the people in the Fred Hampton leftists, all the people that you're following, comrades that you're following. I mean, you're seeing a lot of good, serious critique, and I think that is working. I don't think there's the argument that we're focusing too much on AOC when she's just one person that we're focusing on.
Well, I actually think, Logan, I think I see your point, because there's a way in which the squad and Bernie even have been, and their platform has been commodified and co-opted by the establishment, right? And we've seen over the past year that even when they're in a position of extraordinary power and leverage, they've somehow either been forced not to use it or are not willing to use it. And so I do see your point there, that a lot of our energy over the past few years has gone towards them and just getting them in office. And if we keep focusing on them now, knowing that they're not able to be leaders anymore for the movement, you're right, it does suck energy out of the movement. And I can see your point that we need to focus on how we build our movement outside of them. On the other hand, I do think that they've served, maybe the other side of the coin is they've served some role in kind of radicalizing a lot of us, I think. Like seeing them being, kind of giving in over the past year has also served a role in, I think, pushing people even further to the left. But you're right that we can't spend a lot of our energy on how disappointed we are in them, because we have, a movement to build and work on from the ground up.
I mean, at least we got a Wu-Tang Street.
Right.
Touch on that real quick.
Please.
I agree.
Yeah.
However, I will say that something I've noticed on Twitter specifically is a lot of people say, who should be our new leader? Stop that shit.
Totally.
We don't need a leader. Stop that shit.
Yeah.
So, like,
Stop.
Bernard can't run again. Okay, I get it. He was the grandpa. He made these things, household talking points. He turned so many of us into activists. He gave us that free education. However, we don't need to prop someone else up. And I think so much of this is people who are so scared that if they don't give AOC props, they realize they don't have anyone.
Yeah.
So there is some psychology there that they are so scared that if they don't have at least one person, holy shit, voting, what's electoral politics? I might have to get off my ass and actually do something.
Yeah,
exactly. I was about to say,
Totally.
I feel like because that's people have to start actually looking at themselves, and then that's when it starts getting really scary.
That's when it gets real.
And-
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think Trump really, melted so many people's brains where it's like they forgot about actual issues. They forgot about reasons why they hated him. It was just he was bad because he tweeted bad. And because of that, I think so many people are like, how do we create our own Trump? And so it's sort of like brainwashing to this cult of personalities that we need to have in order to combat it, when that is just completely the wrong path that we can go down. But I think, should we talk about, do you think we should talk about the infrastructure bill at all now? Do we have anything else we need to say? Like, I don't know. What is everyone thinking?
If I could quickly close on what you just said with like a sentence, the left should not focus on creating someone to rally around with a cult of personality. We can go ahead and like find good notable leaders like Fred Hampton style leaders or like the Malcolm X's of the world and stuff like that. But we can't form a cult of personality around someone and never criticize that. The last time the left did that, Stalin happened, and
people will die like in a bad way. Like that person will become a totalitarian, and it will not be a good thing.
Yeah,
it's got to be all of us.
Let's focus on the workers.
It has to be organic, and it has to be and all of this has to be organic. It really does. I feel people are trying to force this to it does. Time is of the essence, but it still has to be organic. You can't just force I still feel like our American now culture is still trying to override reality with the patience with the things take time thing, and it's hard because things are getting scary. So
I almost feel like I feel bad for people. Say 2 years ago you were a serious shitlib and you just came on board with AOC and you're warming up to AOC and everybody's saying, "Oh, AOC don't give a fuck either. Fuck her." Like it's like,
you just
damn, who like? I can understand that frustration, but
it's a sad experience.
I think about what got me to listen to criticism about Obama and other liberals that I admired. And it was, I got told all kinds of shit. I got angry. I got salty as shit. Some of the stuff that people said to me, but I listened to that shit. I listened to it. That tough love, I actually listened to it. It actually got through. When somebody told me that I was supporting American imperialism by defending Barack Obama, I lost my mind back in the day when somebody said that shit, but eventually, I came around. But it is definitely a dance,
Yeah, and I think maybe what we're talking about is also there are two ways to reach people. You have the people who are the hard sell, and you have the people who, if you go right at them, they will balk and maybe go the entire other way. There do have to be. Yeah, I mean, I think there have to be many strategies, and I do think it's important to lead with compassion regardless, right? Whether we're giving out tough love or whether we are coddling them somewhat, like we do need to always be thinking like we need more people and we need them right now. So,
I used to make that, AOC made that exact point. She said in an interview, leave somebody the grace of an exit.
Yeah.
But it's like now we're leaving her that grace. We're leaving these people that grace. I think
Oh,
in
no,
a
no,
lot
no.
of ways. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like
No.
that's a great point. You know, I mean,
I
but to a
definitely
certain
wanna-
extent. Oh,
Sorry. Yeah, no.
No, go
I
ahead.
just want to underline that I am not in any way giving her the grace of an exit. She is trash because she is an American politician. That's the bottom of it for me. And that's
true.
Yeah.
And that's
And she
true. And
said,
I would
"Bring the
never
ruckus."
say, hey, yeah, if somebody's the point you made earlier is a good point. Like you see somebody coming to, and you don't go to them like, haha, yeah, I told you so, stupid shit lib.
Exactly.
You'll get it one day.
Yeah. Are we going to switch over to the infrastructure bill or what's?
Sure, yeah. So as CJ was saying, 9:50 is a time that we'll be closing up and doing our last remarks. So it'll be a little abbreviated, but at least we'll get some of it, I think, with the 18 minutes we have, right?
Okay, yeah. I'll just do a quick run through then, and we can just skip the video. So, the long and short of it is we have these two bills, right? And one of them is a bipartisan bill, which means basically that it was crafted by Republicans and their Democratic foils, basically. And the other one, which is the Build Back Better bill, which is basically the Democratic platform, right? And let me just start off by saying that it is by no means enough, right? The $3.5 trillion, and also let me also say this: it's $3.5 trillion over 10 years. Okay, it's $350 billion. It is not $3.5 trillion right out of the gate. And right, like that right there shows you that they're trying to lose the narrative battle on this, right? They're doing it on purpose. They keep saying $3.5 trillion because when people hear that number, they freak out a little bit. I believe strongly that what they're going to do is they're going to pass the bipartisan one, which is the Republican bill. And then they're going to say, okay, we'll pass this one because we got to get this one done. And then we'll talk more about the 3.5 trillion. And then they'll never pass it, which means we don't get anything that we actually need. Right. And the question that this brings to mind for me is, how do we get people to understand that, even if we do, first of all, they're not going to pass the $3.5 trillion bill, but even if they do, it's not enough. And how do we get people to see that all of this is theater, right? It's all political theater because there is enough money, right? We are a sovereign issuer of our own money, right? We don't run out of money. Also, the $3.5 trillion bill will bring us back money. Right, because that's what happens when you put money into your citizenry. They're happier, they're healthier, they're more productive, and they can give money back into the system. Right. So the fact that they're not looking to pass the $3.5 trillion bill, that shows you kind of what they're thinking. And what my thought is this: how do we get the average person to see that? Whether or not this $3.5 trillion bill happens, how do we get them to see that that's not enough and we still need to do more?
$350 billion a year is not even half of what we give the military every year.
Exactly. Please,
yeah,
Savage,
I've read several synopses. I was an English major, I swear, about breakdowns of the infrastructure bill, and the first issue I take is it is 2,700 pages. That's a problem because that's very one of the most infamous cases is the credit fails. Then what happens? The Violence Against Women Act, and oh yay, now it passes. So the 2,700 page bill, which literally nobody is going through.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Even if you are voting on it. There are a few good things in it. However, I totally agree that the so-called bipartisan one is the one that would pass if it does. And that is absolutely because they want, the Dems want to deflect you with all of the flaws in it, with the additional MIC money that we why are we giving more MIC money when we supposedly just pulled out of a 20-year war? But in any case, there's all of these things. There's it's not even middle ground. It's like breadcrumbs. And what's going to happen is the Dems want that one to pass so they can obfuscate, as usual. And they're going to say Republicans this and that. Dems want to lose next year. I'm 100% convinced, because right now, they have the House, the Senate, the presidency, and they're not doing a damn thing while watching eugenics of poor. So they want this shit to pass, and they want to lose in 2022. It's good for them to blame the bad guys again, and it's good for donations. So pass this shit.
Yeah. Well, just to put into context how small $3.5 trillion is, I believe when Bernie was running, he was proposing like a $17 trillion bill.
Yeah,
and
16
the Green,
trillion.
and the Green Party was proposing even more than that, something like over $20 trillion to actually fight climate change. So we're already like losing, like you said, the narrative battle.
Yeah, I think
and I was just going to say that there was a lot of talk about, kind of from the Noam Chomsky, Nathan Robinson left, towards the election, that we need to get Trump out of office simply, if not for anything else, than because of climate change. And to me, it seems like if climate change is an existential issue for you, then this infrastructure bill will still guarantee that the world will end, right? Like it's not actually going to save us.
Yes.
So if it was existential to get Trump out of office, then it's just as existential to get both parties out of office to save the planet at this point.
Yeah, I feel you. Comrade
Noam
K?
Chomsky's not even going to be here when that happens. That's why he said that.
Mm-hmm.
He's just he's looking rough. Like
I know we don't have that much time, but with the talk about climate change, this is something I wanted to say for a very long time, and stuff like that. Leftists often talk about climate change like it's our ticking clock for revolution, right? Here's the thing. I'm going to be very blatantly honest here. The chances of us, I'm not saying it's impossible, but the chances of us being able to pull off revolution before climate change happens is very slim. And even if that does happen, the chances of us being able to actually reconfigure and restructure the system so that it stops destroying the planet in time for that to not happen is even slimmer. Now, here's the thing. The human race is not going to go extinct, but we may as well be looking at possible extinction because of how terrible the planet's going to be for us. Humans are fucking stubborn. We're like cockroaches. You flush them down the toilet as many times, one's going to crawl back up at the end. There are ways that humans have prepared to survive the fucking horrible apocalypse. Rich people, but still, greenhouses, either underground or in shelters and shit, clean water deposits and all that kind of stuff. And there is something we need to understand. Climate change is going to continue to destabilize and destroy human civilization. Climate refugees are going to flood across the world because their homes are going to be underwater. Natural disasters are going to increase. Crops are going to fail more and more and more. Trust me, the Midwest of America, it's known for producing all that goddamn fucking corn that they love so much. When the corn stops coming in, that's when they know they'll be fucked. And essentially, the breakdown of civilization probably will be the event that tips for revolution. Now, if you ask me, there's nothing we could do to stop what's going to hit us. What we can focus on is taking advantage of the chaos that climate change will bring, and then using that to mediate the damage that it will bring to us, putting that money towards things that could help mediate the damage that it will do to us and the environment. That's all we could focus on. We're not going to be able to actually pull off revolution before the 20-year mark or whatever. And even if we do, we have very little time to actually get our shit together in such a short amount of time. But Not all hope is lost. And in the horrible chaos that will come our way, we have a way out. We have a way to we have a way to, from the ashes of destruction, make a new system that will slowly but surely reverse the damage over time and make a future that future generations will be able to appreciate. Our kids are probably going to grow up in hell, but the best thing you can do is give them the tools for it. I'm sorry.
Special job guarantee.
Say that again, Savage Joy.
Special job guarantee. That's the only way that shit's going to get done. Period.
So I had a bunch of notes for this, but we don't have that much time. And what I basically wanted to wrap up is basically with hope. And it's not a gentle hope. It's not a like everything's going to be great. No, everything's going to be terrible. But through that, what we have to do is not count on whether this bill passes, whether it doesn't, right? Whether we get something better, whether they get it up to $6 trillion miraculously, whatever they do. What we need to do is continue educating, build mutual aid networks, teach people small space farming, teach people who live in the suburbs. Take back, don't give a fuck what your HOA says, okay? You have a lawn, you don't need a lawn. You are not an 18th century king, okay? Get some food in the ground, right? Learn how to sow things. Stop buying from Amazon and from what? Stop today. Right? We're not going to buy our way out of this situation, but we're also not helping our own souls by just continuing to aimlessly support a system that is manifestly against us and is absolutely destroying our lives and the possibility for any future whatsoever. So I guess for me, the overall wrap up, all of these topics, everything that they lead to is we have, like Austin Jones says in the chat, we have each other. We need each other. Let's just start building, right? We need to build systems now. We can't wait for the collapse. That's going to happen. It's collapsing around us piece by piece, right? There's people leaving the military right now. Yeah, it's collapsing, right? So the hope is that we just start moving and start acting, right? Because that's what are we here for, right? Are we here just to talk about the latest thing, or we could be on CNN or MSNBC for that? What we need to be doing, and everyone listening to this, everyone in the panel and everyone listening to this, we are the people who need to be telling our neighbors, like, look, okay, I know this is going on, but how can I help you? How can you help me? Next year, let's share seeds. Let's start a tool bank on our block, right? We don't all need to have hedge trimmers and we don't need everything. Let's share. Do you need a ride somewhere? Let's do that, right? Because there is no help coming. There will be no copters. There will be no help for us when the worst of it comes. And we are all we have.
Hear, hear.
Andrew, do you want to close this out?
Sure. Yeah. So definitely a topic that we could continue to talk about, but unfortunately, time is finite. And we're all very passionate people, so we get caught up on a lot of different the weeds of things. But wanted to, I think, this is a good time to just close and everybody just kind of restate your name. Where you can Twitter and maybe any different updates and things that you have coming up. And then we will skedaddle and we'll see you next week. So we'll go from the top left and we'll work to the right, and then we'll go left to right and bottom. So Savage Joy, take it away.
So thanks so much for having me again. I love this. And I get to meet people like Logan, who I've never met, and I just adore to pieces. But anyway, so you can find me at Savage Joy Marie 1 on Twitter. You can get my Shitlib parody book at savageandpat.com, which is 100% Amazon free since day one. I will be doing a book signing with my co-author, Pat Cody, in LA, along with a comedy show with Jimmy Dore and Rick Overton and Miserable Lib and I'll be doing comedy myself as well, so that should be interesting.
Hey.
Also, after 4 years of doing a show with organizations, I now have gone off on my own. So it's kind of a brave move for me. So if you can follow me at my new solo channel at Savage Joy Marie Man, I'm kind of starting over in a way. So I'm a blind girl. It ain't easy, but I'm gonna try and represent the solo women out there doing this.
Okay, my name is Logan Grendel. Thank you so much. And thank you, Andrew, for co-hosting with me. I really, really love this conversation, and I love being here and talking to all of you. You can find me most easily on Instagram at Focused on Infinity, and please do support my Patreon. I don't use on my own podcast. I don't do any kind of ads, like none whatsoever, and I will not. So it'll either be funded by you or not at all. It's patreon.com/Focused on Infinity. And you can find me, anywhere on the internet just by searching Logan Grendel or Focused on Infinity. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm IDs. You can follow me on the Real IDs on Twitter. Other than that, I'll be here at least every 2 weeks, getting my feet wet, trying to get back into this thing. And I'm still working on a podcast behind the scenes. So hopefully that'll be coming out soon. But I'll see you guys in a couple weeks right here.
I'm Z, and you can find me on Twitter at ZabraelinW and at We Should Read. I'm pretty much just reading books, and I'll post quotes about the books I'm reading. Right now, I'm just working on possibly a revolutionary reading book club where I am trying to find a mandatory reading list that we can compile and just read together and try to have like online meetups and possibly work on a list for the left to read, so we can all be kind of on a better page, so we can all know the history of the left a little bit better.
Yeah. So thank you, Z, and that would be awesome if we got that going, because I think that would just be very valuable. Andrew, you can find me at RadicalPragmat1 on Twitter. One thing, I want to actually give a shout out. I don't know if Quaker Socialist is watching right now, but in the last show, she dropped mutualaidhub.org, which is a website to basically a database to find all these different mutual aids throughout the country. And not only did I learn about a couple more mutual aids that are around me, but also I learned that there's a community fridge nearby me that people just put in food. So I think when we're talking about just mutual aid, sometimes it's like it doesn't have to be something so groundbreaking. It's just something as simple as just knowing where your local refrigerator is, that anybody can just get any fresh food, right? Because oftentimes by design they're not on billboards advertised. So, but you might have to look at it a little bit, but they're right there, and sometimes literally in your backyard. And so that's just, I think, one takeaway. And also, speaking of books, one book that I recently picked out that I'm looking forward to starting reading after I finish this other book is Poor People's Movements: Why They Succeed and How They Fail. This basically talks about some movements in the 70s and stuff. It's a little bit of a dated book. I got it discounted. But I'm looking forward to reading it, and this could be something we could always discuss if it's something worth talking about, because I think it's always good to look into the history of movements that have been successful and not.
Most definitely. I'll look into getting that.
Yeah, so cool. But that's my spiel, and we'll go to my right, TikTok man.
Hey, so I changed my handle to the two platforms that I'm on the most. I know it looks a little bit scrunched, but for anyone who wants to keep up with me, those are, I'm active on TikTok and on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I know. I'm ashamed too, but it's a good site. On Twitter, I tend to try to be as informed as I possibly can be, but I prioritize echoing the voices of those who are the most affected by the issues in our society today. So you'll find me on Twitter doing that kind of stuff. And on TikTok, if you want to hear me just continually ramble on for 1,000 years about fascism and capitalism and all that kind of other good stuff, then that's the perfect place for it. I put a lot of effort into the videos I make, and I'm going to make a transition eventually to other things and growing Instagram and YouTube and stuff like that. But if you want to support me, those two places are the best way to do it. And I'm going to keep coming on to this podcast because this place is awesome. I have to go now because I have to eat dinner and I haven't eaten anything since noon. It's been amazing, comrades. I really appreciate all 9 of you. You guys are amazing, and I can't wait to be back next week where I can talk about that goddamn ranch. So, yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and, you guys are awesome. All right, I'm going to get going.
All right, so take it away. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you again for all of you for having us. And also to Fred Hampton Left in general, just to have this space to kind of bring new people on, right? People who are not kind of in the podcast media space. I think that's, really awesome that they've been willing to create, the space for that. One kind of radicalizing thought I wanted to leave with everybody before we go. I saw the other day in an article that the total household wealth in the US right now is about $136 or $137 trillion. And I did the math. If it were divided equally between everyone among 330 million people, every single one of us would have $415,000 in the bank account right now. After all your debt is paid off. So your credit card debt is paid off, your medical debt is paid off, your student debt is paid off, your house is paid off. And then you have another $415,000 in your bank account per person. So if you live in a household with 2, 3, 4 people, we're looking at $1.6 million that a family of 4 is owed for the work that they've done. And I thought that was a pretty radicalizing moment for me. Because if we're gonna fight for anything, I think it makes it clear just how valuable our work is and what is really owed to us and what we could do with that solidarity and with community. But thank you all for having us. Again, I'm Sol, and you can find me on Twitter at Pole of Justice Pod. That's Politics of Justice Pod on Twitter.
Hell yeah.
All right. Logan, were you going to say anything?
No. I leave it to you. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. It's been great.
It has been.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much. I don't love math, but that's great. You love it, Austin. All right. Yeah, it hasn't been the best to me throughout my years. But anyway, I think CJ will ask us to stay on. So I guess we'll stay on briefly after we exit the live, and then we'll go from there. All right. Take it easy. Thank you. As usual, the chat was great. Love that we have a great core people who are always just in it with us. So, all right. See you all next week at 8, same time, same place.
Thanks,
and that is wherever you are, it's going to be. All right. Peace.